That ObamaCare's crumbling right before our very eyes, and yesterday we learned that the CBO is projecting that this debacle will cost nearly 2.5 million jobs. And today, the head of the CBO, this nonpartisan group, he said this.
By providing heavily subsidized health insurance to people with very low income, and then withdrawing those subsidies as income rises, the act creates a disincentive for people to work relative to what would have been the case in the absence of that act.
Pretty unbelievable, and that's not all. The administration is now resorting to using pets to try and sell this disastrous law.
Listen to me, a talking pug, you see. If you get health insurance, preventive care is now free.
So sweet.
Enroll today. That's what we're here together to say. Enroll today. Take care of people for goodness sake. There's a plan for every budget, so don't accept defeat.
Now you can get covered and still buy me treats.
Enroll!
All right, just pathetic. You really can't make this stuff up. And then there's this ad put out by healthcare.gov. It reads, Mom loves her comfy jeans, and she also loves it when you have health insurance. Now, those are your hard-earned tax dollars at work. Joining me now to try and defend this debacle, Fox News political analyst Juan Williams. Obamacare is creating a disincentive to work. Do I need to play it again? A disincentive to work.
You know,
is that the new America? Is this America hope and change?
You know, that's your best argument, and I'm surprised that you are so spot on this evening, because that's exactly right. But it's not the case, and I'm glad you're not going down that road, Sean Hannity, that so many conservatives are saying, oh, it's going to result in job loss. There's no job loss. There's no one being fired. They're not people who are working full-time being forced on to part-time.
Okay, listen,
this is about individuals having more
sound like
choice.
Bill Clinton, because what we're talking about here is we're dealing with 2.5 million people, or what is the total number of hours Americans work is going to be reduced, the equivalent of 2.3 million full-time jobs. Now,
no, that's their choice. That's not being forced on them. They are making a choice.
Saying.
That's freedom. That's liberty.
That's not freedom and liberty, because what's happening is once they get to the point where they're going to lose their subsidy, they're not going to work anymore.
Well, that's not true.
Freedom and liberty. That's the tendency.
There is almost no fall off. I think the cutoff that you're referring to is about $72,000 a year. And people who make more than $70,000 are not going to say, oh, you know what? I think I'll quit my job so I can get Obamacare.
No, they're not going to work. Look, Juan, you're missing the whole point here. They have created two disincentives. We're getting whacked from both sides here. Number one, the disincentives. All the companies that we've named, including SeaWorld, they're not hiring full-time employees. They're reducing hours, and they're putting people below the 30-hour threshold mark. That's
not right.
That is absolutely right.
There's no increase in part-time workers. What we're seeing here is people who work now on low-level jobs. You know what? Here's the real example.
Drinking this Kool-Aid, and it is full of poison and cyanide.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think the disincentive that you're talking about is legit. That's why I was saying to you,
right,
I think
we agree on that.
Got a right
Let's not get too lost
but
here.
It's not. But wait, hold on. Let me finish this point to you, Sean. It's about someone who's about to retire but has a health care problem, and they realize they can't retire. They've got to keep working to keep their health insurance. That person now might retire. It's about a young mother who says, I want to take care of my kid.
You're missing the point. They're not going to work because the government subsidies are so high. This is all about a government dependency Ponzi scheme. Now, look, let me go over this a second. Yesterday at the White House briefing, economic advisor Jason Furman, listen to him stammer and stumble over his words. He can't get it out. He can't explain it. Watch this.
This report confirms the ACA is making positive impacts today in very important ways, and it confirms what we've all known, which is when you do something like that, it gives people new choices and new options, and people will sometimes make different choices in the face of new choices and new options. I am not saying that I accepted that number. I think there's a whole range of factors that go into estimating that number.
Here's the reality, and I want our audience to be very clear on this. I'll go, and then I promise I'll let you go. It is the equivalent of shrinking the workforce, the equivalent of 2.3 million full-time jobs in terms of the hours, because once you get to that working point, then the incentive, you start losing your subsidies. It's a disincentive to work. Number two, they are creating dependency now as a selling point for this country. Now, if this is the hope and change with 50 million Americans on food stamps and the lowest labor participation rate, 92 million Americans out of the workforce, if you think this is good for this country, you and I will never, ever see eye to eye, because that's not the country my grandparents came to, where there was no safety net at the turn of the last century. Juan Williams.
Sean, you want us to go back to the last century and have no safety net, no social security?
In context, Juan. Follow the bouncing
I'm listening
balls.
to Sean Hannity. I'm just telling you, when you say you don't want individual Americans who might be elderly and having to work a job because they need the health insurance to have the capacity to retire, I don't think you're about liberty and choice. When you say to a young mother, oh, you have to rush back to work instead of take care of your baby, and you say, oh, it's because of Obamacare, let's look at what that report said. It said more people will have some insurance. It says the premiums are going to be lower than they expected.
That's not true. This report says 31 million non-elderly Americans, residents of the United States, will be without health care by the year 2024. It is not insuring every American, as the president said. So let's remind everybody, you don't get to keep your plan, you don't get to keep your doctor, you don't save $2,500 a year, 31 million Americans are uninsured, and it incentivizes people not to work.
Stop with the talking points. Stop with the talking points.
It's called reality points. Check, reality check.
Let's not argue about the facts, because the facts are in the report that came out. And what you said at the start is absolutely true, that some people will now have a reason to say, I don't want to work, and I agreed with you. That's a good point. But it's also true that more people now than the CBO previously estimated will be insured. Premiums will be lower.
One more side. You keep saying it. Every promise that has been made here is broken, and it costs more than they ever dreamed. And 31 million Americans, according to the report, won't get insurance. Let's go to the former CBO director, and that, of course, is Holtz-Eakin, and here's what he had to say.
We're headed straight for a minefield, and no one seems cognizant of this. And, I thought this was actually a relatively depressing report. What it says is that we can teeter along at sort of stable deficits and stable debt relative to GDP until this president's term's over, and then everything goes north in a very bad way. Debt explodes, deficits explode. It's driven by spending, and it's driven by the spending no one's willing to touch.
Straight for a minefield. It's depressing. 50 million Americans on food stamps, a disincentive now to work, 92 million Americans on out of the labor workforce, the lowest labor participation rate in 30 years. And Juan Williams, you come on here and you defend a president that broke the promise to keep your plan, keep your doctor, and save money. And now it's a disincentive to work, and you defend that. I don't get it, Juan Williams. Beam me up.
Let me just tell you something. When you have a system that absolutely came out with a flawed website, and now the CBO says, despite all those flaws, we had previously said
$600 million.
We thought 7 million people would sign up. Now we think it's going to be 6. Hey, you know what? That's good news. When you hear them say that, in fact, these risk corridors are going to put money into the Treasury, reduce our deficit, that's good news. More people insured, good news. And yet, Sean Hannity, you are here
you lost
still
touch
banging
with reality.
the drum. Bang, bang, bang. You're a hater. You should stop the hating,
I don't hate. You know what I hate? I hate unemployed Americans. I hate the fact that people don't have jobs. And I hate the fact that our government is creating dependency and a disincentive to work. Juan Williams, the American dream's dying before your very eyes, and you're defending this madness. That's crazy.
I love America. I would never defend it, but I'm telling you, this is not about people losing jobs.
I want jobs, and I want the economy fixed, and I want to get rid of these deficits, and I want America
to go back to the turn of the century where your grandmother, you want my grandmother and your grandmother out on the street. Stop that.
Get out of here. Get out of here. All right, coming up next.